Part 84. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 831. Chapter 831. Even if you've been beaten, why do you care about your age? At the same time, Ningan enthusiastically brought the news from the main hall to Fan Kinjao. Miss, the eldest lady of the Yu family is really arrogant, and the young master of the Yu family, with a look of contempt in his eyes, and a look of righteousness on his face when he hits someone, is really bullying them too much. Ninghan is still very angry even now when she thinks about the scene just now. Fan Kinjao knew that the eldest wife of the Yu family came to visit with her son in her arms, and she definitely did not come with good intentions. But she really didn't expect that the Yu family could be so arrogant. This is a lot of effort. Grandma was injured and Rengir was also beaten. Yu family, are you really trying to make a fool of the Hua family? Such banditry is exactly the same as that of concubine Yu. Fan Kinjao's hand holding the handkerchief had veins popping out. The Yu family wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to bully others, relying on Yu Hua's family as a companion. They had to see if they had the ability. You ask Fan Zaiduo to take a few people with you to go to the Yu family and tell the old lady of the Yu family everything about the matter. If the Yu family prevents you from seeing the old lady of the Yu family, let them. Fan Zhao, please tear down the door of the Yu family. Fan Kinjao looked at Ninghan and said. The misfortune caused by the Yu family naturally needs to be dealt with by the Yu family's old lady herself. Miss, if the old lady of the Yu family is like the eldest lady of the Yu family. Ninggan really didn't dare to have any hope for the Yu family since she met the eldest lady of the Yu family. Fan Kinjao said, even if the old lady of the Yu family thinks the same as the eldest lady of the Yu family, she doesn't dare to show it on her face. It was the emperor's final decision to let Brother Ren serve as a companion to the Yu family. If the Yu family, if you don't accept it, you are contemptuous of the Holy One. Contempting the Holy One is a capital offense. Does the Yu family really dare to resist? Naturally I don't dare. If the Yu family really had the guts, the old lady of the Yu family would not have personally come to the door with a generous gift when the accompanying reading incident caused an uproar. In the final analysis, this matter is nothing more than MRSU's own decision. I'll go right away. Slave Ninggan nodded, turned around and left. Fan Kinjao picked up the medicine box and headed straight to the main courtyard with Nanny Su. As soon as he entered the door, he heard the abusive voice of MRSU's youngest son. I heard that the Hua family took in a wild species, and the family tradition is not much better. I didn't expect it to be so when I saw it now. The things raised by such a family are not worthy of being my companion. People in the main hall also heard the curse, but at this moment Wu Qiuzhao and Aunt He were worried about Tao Yuxian's injury and had no time to pay attention to it. Seeing this, the youngest son of the eldest wife of the Yu family said even more confidently, my mother said that I am going to do big things in the future, and the things from the Hua family are not even worthy of carrying my shoes. The eldest wife of the Yu family felt very comfortable when she heard her son yelling and scolding. She couldn't understand why the affairs of the Hua family should drag her son down. Finding a reading companion for his son was a big deal. Who wouldn't want to find someone with a background and a strong family? It was just because she couldn't swallow this. You, the eldest wife of the family, just brought her son here today to relieve the fire. Who are you saying is not even worthy of carrying your shoes? A cold voice suddenly sounded at the door. People in the main hall followed the sound and saw Fan Kinjao stepping through the door. The moment she saw Fan Kinjao, the smile on Madame Yu's face quickly retracted. Even though she was reluctant, she took the initiative to bend her knees and said, I would like to pay my respects to the crown princess. Fan Kinjao didn't even look at the eldest lady of the Yu family. He first ordered Nanny Su to carry his grandmother to the back room with Aunt He. Then he walked straight to the youngest son of the eldest lady of the Yu family and asked again, I ask you, who do you think is not even worthy of carrying your shoes? The reason why MRSU's youngest son dares to be arrogant is because as long as he can remember, he has been surrounded by people who treat him respectfully. Facing Fan Kinjao, who had a frosty look on his face, his instinct was to save MRSU's arm. When the eldest lady of the Yu family saw this, she hurriedly said, "The child talks but doesn't mean it. Why should the crown princess care about the child? It's true that a child can talk without meaning, but if someone is not constantly instigating him in his ears, how can a child speak freely and talk arrogantly?" Fan Kinjao glanced at MRSU's wife coldly. Just this look made Madame Yu's body run cold. The youngest son of the eldest wife of the Yu family saw that his mother was being scolded. He suppressed the panic in his heart and said, "Do you really think that you can be arrogant just because you are the princess? After all, you are just a bastard." Snap dash. The dirty curses stopped abruptly. The son of MRSU's wife was stunned and stood there staring. MRSU's wife looked at the slap marks on her son's face and was so shocked that she even forgot her reaction. The few people who carried the old lady into the house were also taken aback. How to say fight, just fight. Wow wow wow, wow wow wow. The youngest son of MRSU's wife, who felt the pain belatedly, finally burst into tears like Ranji's son. The moment MRSU came back to her senses, she hugged her son and looked at Fan Kinjao and said, "How old is our brother Sen? It's hard for the crown princess to be so fussy, or the crown princess is just using her power to bully others." How the Yu family teaches their children is beyond the Hua family's control, but if they want to come to the Hua family to run wild, they have to check how much they weigh first. Shouldn't Tong Yanwuji slap the face of the royal family? So the Yu family is big. Madam is really right about one thing, I am just trying to bully others. Fan Kinjao looked at the eldest wife of the Yu family coldly. She was the crown prince selected by the emperor, and she was a member of the royal family. Her family members were all related to the royal family. If the Yu family insulted the Hua family so much, wouldn't it mean that even the holy emperor didn't take it seriously? The eldest lady of the Yu family completely forgot about this episode. Fan Kinjao lowered his eyes and looked at the youngest son of the eldest wife of the Yu family, who was crying, "No matter how the Yu family raised you, our Hua family has no obligation to follow your example. If you can remember, it will be natural, it's the best. It doesn't matter if you can't remember it. I have plenty of time and energy to help you remember it bit by bit." Fan Kinjao knew that the Yu family was difficult to get along with, but he did not expect that the Yu family would educate their children so arrogantly. If the Yu family can teach their children in this way, then don't blame her for being unkind. Since she took action today, she was bound to hit the child in the bones. In this way, even if he wanted to bully Rengir in the future, he would have to think about whether his face was thick enough, and he could not resist the beating. The youngest son of MRSU's family was really frightened. He looked at Fan Kinjao with panic in his eyes, and even stopped crying unconsciously. "You, the Hua family, have gone too far to deceive others. If you want me to see it, this reading companionship will be cancelled," MRSU's wife shouted at the top of her lungs. She was really angry. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 832. Chapter 832. The purpose of the Yu family. In other words, this is the purpose of MRSU's family bringing her son to Hua's house today. In fact, as early as the moment her son was born, the eldest wife of the Yu family had already found a reading companion for her son. Who would have thought that something like this would happen in the middle, disrupting all her plans, and she had to bite the bullet and admit it. The fact that Hua's family was allowed to stay with their son. The eldest wife of the Yu family found a reading companion for her son. He was the grandson of a second-grade Hanlin Academy scholar at that time. Such a scholarly family could not be compared to the Hua family, which was half dead and living in the main city. Besides, if the third prince really sits on that chair in the future, he will definitely have to use the Yu family. But the Yu family has many heirs, How can the third prince reuse her youngest son like this, with a flower family beside him? A spy should be a companion. The eldest lady of the Yu family mentioned the matter of rejection to her mother-in-law several times, but was rejected by her mother-in-law. The eldest lady of the Yu family had no other choice, so she planned to visit the house in person to find a reason to cancel the accompanying reading. Fan Kinjao had long known that the eldest wife of the Yu family was either an adulterer or a thief, but he didn't expect that this was the idea behind the fight. To put it bluntly, if there was still room for choice, Fan Kinjao would not send brother Ren to be a companion to the heirs of the Yu family, so since the Hua family has to endure it, the Yu family will naturally have to suffer as well. Respond. But before Fan Kinjao could speak, he saw the old lady of the Yu family walking in with support. The old lady of the Yu family, who also heard her daughter-in-law's words, was so angry that she knocked the eldest lady of the Yu family to the ground with a cane. "You are a long-haired person with short knowledge, how come we in the Yu family have such a disgraceful person like you? Why don't you confess to the crown princess quickly?" MRSU's wife lay on the ground, her face twisted in pain. "Mother-in-law, how can you help outsiders?" Old lady of the Yu family. Does she want to help? It's impossible not to help. Let's not talk about the accompanying reading matter, which is the emperor's golden words. Even concubine Yu in the palace can't do anything about it, and it is their turn to make their own decisions. Let's just say that the group of people from the Hua family surrounded the gate of the Yu family, and even the gate of the Yu family they were all demolished and the people were already alarmed. If this matter gets serious, won't the Yu family be in trouble? "You evil thing, why don't you get up quickly and apologize to the crown princess?" the old lady of the Yu family scolded angrily. The eldest lady of the Yu family hated the Hua family so much, how could she apologize to Fan Kinjao, but she didn't dare to refuse the honor of the old lady of the Yu family, so she simply fell to the ground with eyes wide open and pretended to be faint. "Today's matter is all due to the poor discipline of my wife, and I have invited the crown princess to pay a lot of attention. Poor old lady of the Yu family is very old, and she has to wipe the butts of the juniors in the house with all her face." Fan Kinjao glanced at Madame Yu, who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead. "The Hua family never likes to cause trouble, and we ask Madame Yu to take care of her family. What the crown princess said is true, and I must remember it carefully. The matter has reached this point. If Fan Kinjao continues to be unreasonable, he will be overbearing. It is impossible to let her and the Yu family settle their differences." Seeing that her grandmother has been carried into the back room, she just stepped in and walked in. The remaining old ladies of the Yu family stood where they were. It can be said to be extremely embarrassing. The old lady of the Yu family has never been so embarrassed in her life, but in the final analysis, it was the Yu family's fault. She didn't even have the confidence to show her unwillingness, so she quickly had Madame of the Yu family picked up and hurried out. After entering the main hall, he galloped towards the door of the mansion without even daring to look back. In the back room of the main courtyard, Tao Yuxian was lying on the bed with his eyes tightly closed. Fan Kinjao was afraid of touching his grandmother's wound again, so he asked Nanny Su to bring scissors and simply cut a slit in her clothes along her back. Soon, the already red and swollen lower back was exposed under the clothes. Looking at her grandmother's swollen lower back, Wu Qiuzao burst into tears of distress. How could a little child be so cruel? It's a pity that the Yu family is still a high-ranking mansion, so they raised their children in this way. Children understand things, but they are only instigated by adults, Fan Kinjao said in a deep voice while checking his grandmother's injuries. Fortunately, his grandmother had no broken bones. "What do you mean, my sister-in-law, is that this is MRSU's idea?" Wu Qiuzao's eyes widened. "How could anyone raise a child like this?" Fan Kinjao smiled coldly and didn't think there was anything surprising. Concubine Yu occupied the emperor's favor in the palace. After Bailey Rongs was born, the emperor was even more partial. Even if the emperor still retained the positions of queen and prince, For concubine Yu, whether she was the empress or Bailey Wrongs, Li Fengming is just a showman. Concubine Yu thought so, let alone the Yu family. Therefore, in the eyes of the Yu family, Bailey Wrongs is the one who can sit on that chair. The eldest wife of the Yu family is worried that after Bailey Wrongs takes the throne, because her son has an heir of the Hua family as a companion, but he was unwilling to be unable to be reused by Bailey Wrongs. I have to say that the Yu family's idea is quite beautiful. But they put all their hopes on Bailey Wrongs and wanted to see if Bailey Wrongs could really climb up. Iffies. Rengir was so frightened that he was still sobbing in his mother's arms, but looking at his little aunt in front of him, even though the tears on his face were not dry yet, he did not forget to reach out to her for a hug. Wu Qiuzhao looked at his son in his arms and said that he was lying if he said he was not worried. Originally, the Hua family and the Yu family did not deal with each other. Now that something like this happened again, I am afraid that the Yu family will hate the Hua family to death. If in the future, Brother Ren was sent as a companion to the young master of the Yu family, but he didn't know how to be bullied. How could Fan Qinjiao not see the worry in Wu Qiuzhuo's eyes, but it was too early to worry now. Since the eldest lady of the Yu family dares to bring her children to the house to make trouble, she is not a calm person, so we still need to wait and see what the final result will be. It's just that Fan Qinjiao didn't want to boast in front of his sister-in-law until the matter was settled. Sister-in-law, please take Brother Ren to rest first. Grandma is here to watch over me. Okay, if anything happens, my sister-in-law will send someone to find me at any time. Wu Qiuzhuo nodded, hugged Brother Ren and went out first. Fan Qinjiao turned around and sat on the bed. He first applied the ointment for promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis on his grandmother's lower back bit by bit with his hands. Then he warmed his palms and slowly rubbed the ointment into his skin. Wait until the ointment was completely absorbed. After it was absorbed, the silver needle was placed on the red and swollen area. I don't know how long it took before Tao Yuxian gradually became less aware of the pain in her lower back. When she opened her eyes, she saw Fan Qinjiao sitting by the bed, silently by her side. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 833. Chapter 833. Adding obstacles to the emperor. Seeing that her grandmother was awake, Fan Qinjiao quickly bent over and asked, "Grandma still feels pain?" Tao Yuxian moved his lips, and it took him a long time before he uttered a voice, "You're getting older and you just can't help but the rest of your family is gone." The old lady of the Yu family came to pick them up in person. The eldest lady of the Yu family has to leave even if she doesn't want to. Fan Qinjiao stood up and turned her grandmother's body sideways so that her grandmother could lie down more comfortably. Of course Tao Yuxian knew that MRSU's wife would never step into the Hua family's door by herself. She was afraid that Xiao Qinjiao had done something behind her back to prevent MRSU's family from pretending to be dead even if she wanted to. The eldest lady of the Yu family is not a fuel-efficient lamp. I'm afraid there will be consequences to this matter. Tao Yuxian has now seen what the purpose of the eldest lady of the Yu family is. Don't say that the Yu family doesn't want to get involved with the Hua family. If we have some way, we don't want Brother Ren to be dependent on others. But once the emperor makes a decision on this matter, as long as the emperor still sits in that chair, this matter will. There is no room for regret between the two families, Fan Qinjiao said calmly. This kind of truth, even if the Yu family is not familiar with it, it is impossible for concubine Yu not to understand it. As long as concubine Yu doesn't care about this matter, the Yu family will have to swallow this mute. Tao Yuxian nodded, "You are right. No matter how prestigious the Yu family is, it is impossible to enter the palace to meet the emperor. Even if the Yu family really finds some way to see the emperor, they want to beg the emperor to take it back. To be destined is to seek death on your own. Mrsu has lived for most of her life, so there is no way she doesn't understand this. The grandfather and grandson smiled knowingly, and everything was understood in silence. Tao Yuxian didn't want to talk about the Yu family's affairs anymore, so he paused and said, "By the way, your aunt and grandmother wrote a letter some time ago, saying that the junior below is coming to the main city to talk about marriage, and he is expected to stay at Hua's house for a few days." Day. Fan Qinjiao does know that there are many sisters on his grandmother's side, but at this age, there is only one sister left on his grandmother's side. In the last life, she had heard her grandmother mention that her aunt and grandmother wanted to come to the main city for a blind date, but at that time she had already been deeply trapped in Bailey Wrong's trap and had no time to care about anything else. Nothing happened. I guess it was my grandmother who refused. The older a person gets, the more they value their past relationships. Fan Qinjiao thought that his grandmother probably wanted to help, otherwise he would not have mentioned it to her. Thinking of his behavior in the last life, Fan Qinjiao would not refuse in this life. "I don't know when I will come over, I will ask someone in advance. Get ready so that you can stay right away when someone comes." Tao Yuxian didn't expect Fan Qinjiao to agree so happily. She was still hesitant at first. After all, the main city was not quiet now, and even she was afraid that people coming would cause trouble. But now that Fan Qinjiao had agreed, he smiled happily and said, "If your aunt and grandmother know about it, she will definitely be happy, but there is no need to be too anxious here. Wait for me to write a reply and ask." "Okay, that's the news I'm waiting for from my grandmother." Fan Qinjiao looked at his grandmother and smiled, and he also laughed too. The Hua family's side is calm, but the Yu family's side is very lively. As soon as the eldest lady of the Yu family returned to the house, she knelt in front of the old lady of the Yu family and cried bitterly, "Mother-in-law, Brother Sen is your youngest grandson. Do you really have the heart to let the Hua family cling to Brother Sen like this? If Brother Sen is delayed for the rest of his life because of the Hua family, what should we do?" The old lady of the Yu family was so shocked by the cry of the doctor of the Yu family that her temples jumped. "It's not too late to agree to this matter first, and then discuss it slowly and long term. Brother Sen is only so old, and the little grandson of the Hua family is only so old, so why do you have to so unbearable? It's not like a blink of an eye for a child to grow up. If I didn't think about Brother Sen, wouldn't his life be ruined like this?" Whenever the eldest lady of the Yu family thinks about her son's future, she becomes anxious and has trouble sleeping and eating. What right do the remnants of the Hua family have to be confused with my brother Sen? If you ask me, it was the emperor who was kind in the beginning. A mansion like the Hua family, they should all be beheaded. The old lady of the Yu family lost her patience when she heard the remnant words on the left and the remnants on the right. "Listen to all the dirty words you said. Don't forget, what will Brother Sen look like in the future? You, the mother-in-law, is the model. If that's the case, that would be great. I hope Sengir can stay away from like Hua's family." You. The old lady of the Yu family was so angry that she even smashed the teacup in her hand. "How could you just go back on the emperor's decree? Don't say I didn't warn you. Let's put this matter aside for the time being. If you want to continue making trouble, don't blame me for being unkind." The eldest lady of the Yu family trembled because of the yelling, but as soon as the old lady of the Yu family left, she slapped her skirt and stood up with disdain. The emperor couldn't see it, so she went to beg the imperial concubine. Anyway, she would never let her the son got involved with the Hua family. The eldest wife of the Yu family has always been impatient. She ran to the palace gate early the next morning, claiming that she was concubine Yu's sister-in-law and that she wanted to enter the palace to see concubine Yu. The guards in front of the palace gate heard that she was from the Yu family, so they couldn't help it. Anyone who dared to stop her would quickly send someone to Yu palace. However, concubine Yu now had no intention of dealing with the Yu family, so she just had a laissez-faire attitude. Who would have thought that the eldest lady of the Yu family would never look back until she hit the south wall? She waited in front of the palace gate until there was any movement. Finally, she burst into tears in front of the palace gate, crying and complaining that concubine Yu was cruel and ruthless. Don't care about your mother's family. Now, everyone in the palace knows about it. In Fenji Palace, Queen Zhen 11 narrowed her eyes with laughter as she listened to Yan Qian's report. Our palace is really getting more and more lively. Yan Qian said softly, it's no wonder concubine Yu has been estranged from the Yu family these years. Having such a natal family is really a headache. As the saying goes, evil people will be punished by evil people, but speaking of it, the eldest lady of the Yu family is also pitiful. She has been sitting in front of the palace gate for a day. Lily, go to the imperial palace and take a look, and by the way, tell the news in front of the palace gate. Take them together. Doesn't the emperor love Wujiwu, and I think the emperor will also take pity on concubine Yu's family. Normally, news from the palace will not be spread to the emperor casually. Even if there is news, the people from the emperor will intercept it as soon as possible. Otherwise, the emperor will just listen to the rumors in the palace. Rumors can fill you up. Lily. Empress, are you really serious about causing trouble for the emperor so openly? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 834. Chapter 834 I feel like a monkey. Of course Empress Zhen 11 is serious. She just wanted the emperor to see with his own eyes what kind of evil she had done. Soon, under the good intentions of Queen Zhengzi, Emperor Yongchang, who was about to go to Yuya Palace for dinner, heard about what happened in front of the palace. After sending someone to inquire, he found out that the eldest lady of the Yu family was actually I came here because of the fact that the heirs of the Hua family were accompanying me to study, and I was furious on the spot. It was concubine Yu who was happily waiting for the emperor in Yu Palace. She never imagined that what she was waiting for would be a scolding from the emperor. Emperor Yongchang became so angry when he thought of the Yu family's audacity that they didn't even obey his own will. He couldn't think of eating. After making a big fuss in Yu Palace, he just walked away, leaving Yu behind. The people in the palace knelt on the ground, not daring to express their anger. It was concubine Han Xian who came to pay her respects. He still raised his feet in mid-air, not knowing whether to go in or out. Concubine Yu was almost mad to death, and immediately sent someone out of the palace to send a message to the old lady of the Yu family. The result can be imagined. The eldest wife of the Yu family was taken away by the Yu family. The old lady of the Yu family never expected that the eldest lady of the Yu family would be so unrepentant. In a fit of anger, she simply asked Brother Sen to come to her side and would not allow the eldest lady of the Yu family to come closer. Now, MRSU's wife is no longer making trouble. The eldest lady of the Yu family was completely confused. When Fan Qinjiao found out about this, she actually breathed a sigh of relief. She expected that MRSU's wife would not give up, and she also knew that MRSU's wife would definitely take action. Although she didn't know how MRSU's wife would punish MRSU's family. Madam, as long as it serves the purpose of setting an example to others, that's all. In this way, even if the Yu family and the Hua family are still at odds with each other in the future, when Brother Ren really becomes Brother Sen's companion, the Yu family, at least on the surface, will not dare to look down on Brother Ren anymore. I just didn't expect that the old lady of the Yu family could directly ask someone to leave. Fan Qinjiao thought about MRSU's method of educating children. Now that MRSU takes her child with her, it is also a good thing for the child. Go and spread the news to eldest brother's yard. Fan Qinjiao looked at Ningguan and said, always trying to make his sister-in-law feel at ease. Wu Qiuzhao never expected that there would be such a follow-up. Although he was relieved, looking at his infant son, he couldn't let go of his worries. When Hua Fengning came back, he saw his wife looking at him with bright eyes. Hua Fenning. What's the situation? I plan to let Brother Ren practice martial arts, what do you think? Wu Kaiozhuo felt that only if his son's fists became stronger, he would no longer be bullied by others. Hua Fenning doesn't think there's anything wrong with practicing martial arts, it's just. Brother Ren is so young, he can't even walk yet. It's too early to start practicing martial arts now. Wu Kaiozhuo disagreed. Don't they all say that you should practice martial arts as early as possible? I heard that the boys of our Hua family can memorize the art of war at the age of 3, and start training with their grandfather in the army at the age of 5. It's true, but you don't start practicing martial arts before you can even walk. Hua Fenning looked at his son's little arms and legs, and thought it would be ridiculous to let the child practice martial arts now. Wu Kaiozhuo disagreed. As a man, the earlier the better, isn't it? Even if Brother Ren can't practice martial arts now, he can still watch it. Why don't you give Brother Ren a set of punches every day? Hua Fenning. Starting from the second day and continuing every day thereafter, he had to get up half an hour early to give his son a set of boxing skills before he could go out. When the Hua family heard about this, they couldn't stop laughing. Maybe it was because they hadn't seen a man practicing boxing in the family for a long time. I don't know since when, the Hua family was used to getting up half an hour early. We gathered together in Hua Fenning's yard to watch Hua Fenning boxing. Hua Fenning. I feel like I am becoming more and more like a monkey. Is this a big deal? Fan Qinjiao didn't expect that her sister-in-law could come up with such a solution, but seeing her sister-in-law's relieved expression, what else could she say? Can't say anything. Just watch silently. In the middle of summer, my aunt and grandmother finally decided on a date to come to the main city. However, it was not my aunt who came to the main city this time, but my aunt's daughter-in-law who brought her daughter to come and marry her. But even so, everyone in the Hua family packed up early. Fan Qinjiao thought about his daughter's family and always liked some accessories, but he couldn't be too public about it when he wanted to say goodbye, so he hurried into the palace to check the 5th prince's pulse and then took a carriage to Qingnanzai. Miss. As soon as they saw Fan Qinjiao, Yu Luo and Peng Jing's eyes lit up. Mu Yan, who was in the warehouse, heard the noise and ran over quickly. Why is the third sister here? Fan Qinjiao took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the sweat on Mu Yan's forehead. We are all about to get married, why are we getting more frizzy? Mu Yan's cheeks turned red and she couldn't even lift her head. Third sister will make fun of me. Fan Qinjiao saw that Mu Yan was really shy, so he stopped teasing her, took her hand and said, I heard that my aunt and grandma's family is coming today, so I thought of coming to you to pick something as a meeting gift. During this period of time, Qingnanzai had launched new products, and there was an endless stream of customers every day. Mu Yan was so busy that she forgot about this matter. After hearing the words of the third sister, she was suddenly stunned, and then he followed Fan Qinjiao to the warehouse at the back. Yu Luo and Peng Jing looked at the scene and smiled without saying a word. The warehouse of Qingnanzai is filled with a variety of sachets, ornaments, and hairpin accessories, all of which are filled with different herbs to achieve various health-preserving purposes. When Fan Qinjiao handed over the shop to Mu Yan, he deliberately cleared the inventory in the warehouse in advance, in order to let Mu Yan learn to make his own things, instead of always following in her footsteps. Unexpectedly, it has only been more than a year, and the originally empty warehouse is full of things again. Fan Qinjiao looked at the densely packed decorations on it, and couldn't help but sigh again. Mu Yan has grown up, and this time she can really stand alone. I don't know what my granddaughter's preferences are, so I can only choose a few, Fan Qinjiao said softly. Mu Yan murmured softly, it's not so much what Lishan likes, but what our cousin likes. Lishan is the granddaughter who is coming for a blind date this time. Fan Qinjiao was stunned and looked at Mu Yan doubtfully. How do you say this? Mu Yan thought that the third sister was the closest person to her, So she said without any worries, the third sister doesn't know something. In fact, when I was still young, my aunt and grandmother came to our house as a guest with Lishan. Fan Kinjao was not at Hwa's house at that time, so he didn't know about these things. Now that he heard Mu Yan talk about it, he couldn't help but be curious. What happened? Mu Yan shook her head. I can't explain a sentence or two clearly. Third sister will know when people come. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 835. Chapter 835, Not Taking the Hua Family Seriously. In Fan Kinjao's understanding, although Mu Yan is introverted, she is not difficult to get in touch with. On the contrary, as long as others show kindness to her, she will definitely repay it twice as much. But now when she mentioned her cousin, Mu Yan was obviously repulsed and disgusted. Looking at Mu Yan's reaction, Fan Kinjao became more and more curious about his upcoming cousin. But seeing that Mu Yan really didn't want to say more, Fan Kinjao simply stopped questioning carefully. After selecting a few accessories, he told Mu Yan to go back early tonight and left the warehouse. Just when Fan Kinjao wanted to get on the carriage, Peng Jing chased him out breathlessly. Miss. Fan Kinjao stopped and turned around. Is something wrong? Peng Jing was confused by the question. The words were on his lips, but he didn't know how to say them. Looking at Peng Jing's appearance, Ninghan couldn't help but joked, if you have anything to say, just say it. Why do you have to push back in front of the lady? Peng Jing. Is this how push, 3, block and 4 are used? I'm talking about Peng Jing. Could it be that you have fallen in love with a girl from some family and want the young lady to rob a common girl for you? Ninghan looked at Peng Jing and teased. They all came to the young lady in a group. Yes, even if Peng Jing and Yu Luo Qingnanzai help, their feelings for each other have not become alienated because of this. Peng Jing's face turned red when Ninghan said that, and he suddenly summoned up the courage to say, I want to marry Yu Luo. Ninggan. Mine, did you really let her talk about it? Yu Luo, who was walking towards this direction, immediately froze in place. During the time that Yu Luo and I have been together day and night, our personalities and temperaments are quite compatible. I just dare to ask Miss to make the decision. Miss, please betroth Yu Luo to me. When Peng Jing spoke, even his eyes, they all dared not open their eyes. It was the first time that I found myself so nervous. Hearing these words, Fan Kinjao looked at Yu Luo. Looking into the eyes of his young lady, Yu Luo lowered her head shyly and nervously. Looking at this reaction, what else doesn't Fan Kinjao understand? Just when she looked at Peng Jing again, she did not immediately agree. I remember, Yu Luo is a few years older than you, right? 3 years older, but I don't care. Yu Luo fell before me, but she was betrothed to someone else. It was just an engagement. Later, Yu Luo's betrothed husband died of illness. Those people wanted to force Yu Luo to have a secret marriage, so Yu Luo ran away. I know Yu Luo's life was hard before. Don't worry, Miss, I will definitely cherish Yu Luo in the future. Fan Kinjao only knew that Yu Luo was engaged, but she never asked her why. Now seeing that Peng Jing knew so much in detail, and even took the initiative to help Yu Luo smooth things over, what else could she worry about? When I get back, and he will pick an auspicious day for you, Fan Kinjao said with a smile. Peng Jing was stunned on the spot. Do you agree? He thought that because the young lady kept asking him questions, she didn't intend to marry Yu Luo to him. Ninggan helped Fan Kinjao get into the carriage. Seeing that Peng Jing was still stunned, she couldn't help but sneer, idiot. And so to speak. Yu Luo walked to Peng Jing's side and looked at the young lady's carriage with red eyes. Mu Yan walked over with a smile and said softly, third sister is afraid that Peng Jing won't treat you badly, so she asked all the questions that need to be asked. Don't worry, With third sister here, Peng Jing won't dare to treat you badly. Yu Luo nodded with tears in her eyes. She knew the lady's painstaking efforts. She knew them all. On the carriage not far away, Bailey Rongs looked at the scene in Kingnan's eye and couldn't explain how he felt. He and his mother and concubine were worried to death because of the fifth prince's affairs, but Fan Kinjao was still there. Do you have the leisure to help a few slaves maintain matchmaking? The staff, who were also sitting in the carriage, saw that the third prince was absent-minded and quickly said, Your Highness, there is no way back for us now. Yes, Your Highness, since we chose to do this in the first place, we must not fail. If we can't take the opportunity to dismount the prince, all our previous efforts will be in vain. Bailey Rongs came back to his senses and looked at the staff in front of him with heavy eyes. Of course I know what's going on, so I'll have someone take action tonight. Several staff members finally breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. The mansion in the western suburbs was bustling. Aunt Sue was afraid that she would be too busy by herself, so she lent Aunt He over and together she and the servants in the mansion cleaned the courtyard, even though they had been cleaned for several days. Nanny Sue is still worried. In the final analysis, their cousin's daughter-in-law is not so easy to get along with. My cousin got married to Ling Cheng very early and went into business with her cousin. When the sisters and young men in the house were still young, my cousin had a prosperous life in Ling Cheng. Otherwise, the cousin's family was when the daughter-in-law first came to Hua's house, she wouldn't be so arrogant. Some time ago, I heard the old lady mention that my cousin's family is now the largest merchant in Ling Cheng. If I dare not let the emperor hear it, he is the local emperor of Ling Cheng. Nanny Sue lowered her voice. Hearing this, and he also had a look of bitterness and hatred on her face, my cousin is better, but my cousin's daughter-in-law is really, sigh. Seeing that and he also started to sigh, Nanny Sue felt even more unsure. She quickly called on a few maids and walked towards the guest courtyard. No, she had to have someone clean the guest courtyard a few more times. All over. Everyone in the western suburbs mansion was busy until evening. Because guests were coming, all the people in the courtyard gathered in the main courtyard to have dinner together. Just in a blink of an eye, it was already an hour later than the agreed time, and there was still no report from the concierge. The daughters-in-law looked at the table full of food and could not eat it. They looked helpless but did not dare to say anything. There is nothing else to do but wait. Fan Kinjao looked at the expressions of his aunts, really wanting to see what kind of person that cousin was. Another hour passed in a flash. Tao Yuxian sent people back and forth to the concierge to inquire several times. Seeing that the food on the table was getting cold, his face gradually darkened. Old lady. The concierge finally ran in. Tao Yuxian asked quickly, but people have arrived. The concierge said, the person who came here is the person who sent a message to the CAO family. He said that he just happened to catch up with the fireworks banquet tonight in Fengcheng. My cousin and my cousin are going to visit the lake for a few days. They will not arrive in a few days. We will wait until then. Send us a message and ask us to respond in front of the city gate. Hearing this, the several daughters-in-law looked a little gloomy on their faces. The CAO family came to the main city this time just to talk about their marriage, but instead they went to visit the lake. Besides, there are inns in every city now. Even if something is really delayed, you should write a letter in person and ask the people at the inn to deliver it. Fengcheng is right next to the main city, and the people at the inn are working hard. Delivering letters is always faster than asking a servant to run errands. In the final analysis, people just don't take the Hua family seriously at all. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 836. Chapter 836 How could it be His Royal Highness? You didn't tell me you were late, but you still plan to let others greet you in person afterwards? Fan Kinjao's face also turned cold. Having been born in 2 generations, there are many people who are arrogant, but it is really rare to see people who are so arrogant. Tao Yuxian's face was already extremely ugly. Hua Yaoding had never been involved in the affairs between the women in the backyard, but seeing his wife's unkind expression, for fear of getting angry, he hurriedly invited everyone to eat. Who can really have an appetite if they are just pretending? The meal was tasteless. After putting down the dishes, everyone hurriedly went back to their respective courtyards. Ningguan, who was making the bed, saw her young lady coming in and asked in confusion, "Why did the young lady come back so soon? Is it because my cousin and grandma are not easy to get along with?" Fan Kinjao snorted coldly, "You don't know if you can get along well with him or not, you have to at least meet him in person." And he, who came in later, heard the news from the concierge and couldn't help but sigh, "I thought that my cousin's temperament could change in the past few years, but now it seems that she is still the same as before. How can a normal person go out to be a guest and then swim in the mountains and play in the water on the road? Go down and sleep." Fan Kinjao might have been interested in hearing about her cousin before, but now, she didn't want to hear a word about it. It would be best if people just don't have fun in Fengcheng. If you come again, today's events will have to be discussed carefully. This night, all the lights in the courtyards of the western suburbs mansion were turned off early, probably because the cousin was out of mood. Fan Kinjao also went to bed early. Unexpectedly, before he could sleep for a long time, he heard a movement in the yard. Soon, Ningguan, who was keeping watch outside, crept in and said, "Miss." Fan Kinjao hummed, "What happened?" "A person from the concierge said that a guest has arrived." He introduced himself as the Yuan family's wife and came to see the lady instead. "Mrs. Yuan? Isn't that from the Qing family of Dali Temple? Everyone in the house has gone to sleep. Don't disturb other people. Please invite them in quietly." "I understand, miss." Ningguan went out to invite people, and Fan Kinjao also got up. Although Mrs. Yuan's wife is also a woman, she is a guest after all. It is not easy for Fan Kinjao to see people like this. He hurriedly changed his clothes and combed his hair casually. However, as soon as he finished tidying up, the curtain at the door was removed. Lifted up. As soon as Mrs. Yuan entered the door, she said to An, "I disturbed the crown princess's rest. It is my wife's crime that deserves death." Fan Kinjao quickly stretched out his hand to help the person up. Mrs. Yuan's family does not need to be polite. Mrs. Yuan's family stood up following Fan Kinjao's strength, but in the end she was still very reserved. She stood there holding the handkerchief in her hand, as if "I don't even know how to speak anymore." Fan Kinjao motioned to Ningguan to bring a chair over, let the people in the kitchen boil water and make tea. Ningguan nodded, turned around and walked out the door. Mrs. Yuan's wife sat on a chair, listening to Fan Kinjao's instructions, her eyes widened in surprise. Speaking of which, the last quarrel between the Yuan family and the crown princess was not very pleasant. In addition, when she was at the Yuan family that day, the crown princess had an amazing momentum. She came to knock on the door of the Hua family today because she had prepared a day in advance. Construction. When I was at the Yuan family last time, there was indeed a big incident, but it was not for Mrs. Yuan and Mrs. Yuan. Since Mrs. Yuan is here today, she is my guest, so there is no need to be cautious. Fan Kinjao could see the uneasiness in Mrs. Yuan's eyes at a glance. Mrs. Yuan's family. I never expected that such a powerful crown princess could be so approachable. But they came here, and Mrs. Yuan's family didn't say a word. What the crown princess said is that everyone in the Yuan family would like to thank the crown princess for cleaning up the Yuan family as early as when I met Zhao Yi. I realized that this woman was very ambitious, but who made my master owe the Zhao family. Fan Qinjiao smiled faintly, of course you have to pay back what you owe. I heard from the prince that the minister of Dali Temple is frank and upright. The last time I saw him, I really admire the character of the minister of Dali Temple. MRS Yun's wife has been making public appearances for the Yun family in recent years. Now, listening to Fan Qinjiao's words, it is inevitable that she will be a little impressed. She can win the favor of the prince with her words and deeds. This princess is really not an ordinary person. Zhao Yi committed such a thing, and I sent someone to send her to the Guzi temple that day. I thought she would give up, but I didn't expect that the people at the Guzi temple would tell her that Zhao Yi was gone within a few days. Later, I also asked someone to send her to the Guzi temple. We have inquired a lot, but there is still no news. Even now, MRS Yun's wife still itch with hatred when she mentions the word Zhao Yi. If it weren't for that person whose eyes are as high as the sky, she wouldn't be so bow-headed now. Fan Qinjiao was also stunned when she heard that Zhao Yi was missing, but she was not wasting her time for unimportant people sitting here now. I can't get involved in MRS Yun's housework, but I thought that MRS Yun's appearance late at night I came here not just to talk about Zhao Yi, right? After hearing this, MRS Yun's hand tightened her hand on the handkerchief. After a long while, she lowered her voice and said, actually, the reason why I came here this time is because the people who disappeared and returned just an hour ago, someone among them drew a portrait of the thief who caused trouble that day. The wife always felt that this person looked familiar, so she thought of bringing it to the crown princess to see. Ning Han, who was standing at the door, laughed out loud when he heard this. This is a great thing. I don't know how worried I am about this matter recently. If the thief can be caught in one fell swoop, the main city will truly be at peace. Fan Qinjiao frowned slightly, but without any smile. If it was really a good thing, MRS Yun's wife wouldn't be sitting here now. MRS Yun's family, you might as well say it directly if you have something to say. MRS Yun's wife looked at Fan Qinjiao's expression and guessed that the crown princess might have guessed something. She sighed in her heart and didn't expect the crown princess to be so smart. She quickly took out the portrait she had brought with her from her lapel. Just when she handed it to Fan Qinjiao, MRS Yun hesitated again. Fan Qinjiao took the portrait and opened it in his palm. With the faint candlelight in the room, the faces in the portrait soon became clear. Ning'an stepped forward curiously and looked at the portrait. She never imagined that it was just like this, and she was so shocked that her eyes almost fell off. That's... Your Highness the Crown Prince. Fan Qinjiao looked at the face in the portrait. His facial features were exquisite, handsome, and elegant. He really looked like Bailey Fengming. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 837. Chapter 837. Everyone is possessed. The room fell into silence for a while. The occasional sizzling sound made by the candlestick can make people feel a little frightened for no reason. MRS Yun's wife looked at Fan Qinjiao's expression, but she couldn't figure out the reason no matter how she looked at it. She simply said bravely, "My master also saw that the person in the portrait was so handsome, Your Highness, so let's let him go." The minister's wife brought the portrait to the crown princess overnight. In the final analysis, it was not because of the incident involving Zhao Yi last time that the Yun family suffered a loss first. Now that this matter has been committed in the hands of the minister of Dali Temple, the minister of Dali Temple naturally wants to repay this debt. Fan Qinjiao naturally understands the thoughts of the minister of Dali Temple. What Fan Qinjiao has never understood is what Bailey Rong's purpose was in attacking the fifth prince. But now looking at the portrait in his hand, what else does Fan Qinjiao not understand? Bailey Rong saw that Bailey Fengming was getting more and more attention from the emperor, so he sent people to make trouble in the main city on the 15th day. Unexpectedly, the fifth prince who went to investigate the matter discovered the purse, and Bailey Wrongs probably felt guilty as a thief, so he knocked out the fifth prince, and then asked Yunyu to poison the fifth prince. As for the portrait in front of you, what will happen if the people in the main city identify that the murderer is the prince? Originally, the missing children in the two cities have not yet been found out. Once the portrait is made public, the people will subconsciously believe that the reason why the prince has not been able to find the missing children is because he spent all his energy on following up sibling intrigues. Even if the common people have heard that imperial power has always required intrigues, who dares to really put their lives in the hands of emperors who play with their lives in order to compete for power? When that time comes, those who are waiting for Bailey Fengming will completely lose the support of the people. MRSUN's wife looked at Fan Qingjiao's uncertain face and whispered, "My master also believes that His Highness the Crown Prince would never do such a thing that makes fun of people's lives, so this time my wife came here because she wanted to let me warn the princess in advance. As for this portrait, I don't know who threw it outside the Yuan family house. My master is willing to pretend that he didn't see anything. This is the maximum the Yuan family can do." Ning'an did not expect that the person who helped a lot in the end was the Yuan family. She was about to bow and thank her on behalf of her young lady when she saw Fan Qingjiao returning the portrait in his hand. The minister of Dali Temple has always been fair and honest, it would be bad if he became depressed because of this matter. MRSUN's family was stunned. The crown princess means. Fan Qingjiao paused and said, "Just take care of official business." MRSUN's family. Completely shocked. MRSUN felt that if a normal person encountered such a thing, their first thought would be to calm the matter down. Why did it become so abnormal when it came to the crown princess? However, looking at the expression on the crown princess's face, she didn't seem to be joking. MRSUN had no other choice but to return to the house with a confused look on her face, and told her master exactly what the crown princess had said. The minister of Dali Temple. It is indeed quite unexpected. In my opinion, the crown princess is afraid. After all, she has not married the crown prince yet. If something happens to the crown prince at this time, the crown princess will not be too implicated. MRSUN's family analyzed this matter. To put it nicely, it means giving up on oneself. To put it unpleasantly, it means that they both flew away when disaster struck. The people of the royal family have always been indifferent to emotions, and such things are not uncommon. The minister of Dali Temple felt helpless when he saw his wife's clear analysis. Although he still didn't know what the crown princess was planning, he believed, others may do it, but the crown princess definitely won't. If the crown princess was really that kind of person, there would be no Hua family today. Thinking back then, the stagnant situation in the Hua family was all brought to life by the crown princess. How could a person who could push more than 100 coffins to the palace gate and demand justice for the Hua family be so ruthless and ruthless? A righteous person? Fan Qingjiao didn't know that the minister of Dali Temple gave her such a high evaluation. As soon as MRSUN left, she got on the carriage. Bailey Wrongs wants to take advantage of Bailey Fengming's absence from the main city to frame him, but the prerequisite is to see if he has the shrewd mind. If Bailey Wrongs really succeeds in this matter, Bailey Fengming wants to stand up again, it is difficult to reach the sky. Fan Qingjiao clenched his hands into fists under his sleeves, and his heart was heaving. Since Bailey Wrongs has declared war, he must be prepared to stand till the end. If she doesn't let Bailey Wrongs get away with this incident, she won't be called Fan Qingjiao. "Miss, we're here." The carriage that had been speeding suddenly stopped. Fan Qingjiao opened the car door and was helped out of the carriage by Ning Han. What he saw was a messy alley entrance. Compared with the prosperity of the main city, this place is like another world. I heard from the common people before that many of the people who were kidnapped lived here. At that time, I was also curious and came over to take a look. I didn't expect that there is such a place in our main city. I heard that it was the former. I was ordered by the imperial court to move here a few years ago. Ningan sighed. She really didn't expect that the imperial court would do such a thing. Fan Kinjao is not surprised. With the emperor who is not doing his job properly in politics, the court's affairs will naturally not be so open and above board. The reason why all the poor people are gathered here is also the intention of their emperor. After all, for him, who always likes to be praised by the people, the suffering of these poor people will only highlight him as a selfish, ignorant, and helpless person. The Emperor of Tao. Fan Kinjao led Ningan all the way to the alley. Compared with the high-end mansions in the main city that had long extinguished their candles, most of the people here were still busy. Many of them were small traders setting up stalls. Some are hunters who have just returned from hunting, and others are sitting on the street in a daze with dull eyes. Just as Ningan was about to ask a question, she heard a vendor who came back with a wooden cart saying, "These people have become nervous since they were rescued, and sometimes they will go crazy and bite people. We all say that these people, she has been possessed by evil spirits and her soul has been taken away by evil spirits. It is better for the girl not to touch them." Ningan was stunned for a moment. Where can I rescue him from? It was the people from the imperial court who found him after he disappeared on the 15th. Are these all? That's right, but the missing children have not been found yet, but I think there is not much hope. Even if they can be found, they will probably be as crazy as these people. Ningan was stunned. The court only posted a notice saying that the person had been found, but it never said that the people who were rescued were all crazy. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 838. Chapter 838. Who doesn't know how to throw dirty water? The vendor looked at Ninghan and asked, "The girl doesn't look like she is from here." Ah, I am here to accompany my young lady to find her bride." Ningan had always been proud that her young lady was the princess, but she didn't dare to say it now. The imperial court and the royal family have always been involved, but now that the imperial court has found a group of evil people, they will ignore them. If she dares to say that her young lady is related to the royal family, she is afraid that she will be kicked out. It's strange that people come to such a poor place to look for relatives. What is the name of the family you are looking for? Call, what is it called? Ningan really didn't expect that the people in this alley were so hospitable, so she made up a name at random. Who would have thought that there was actually someone with this name in this alley? Seeing that Ningan was not old, the merchant took the initiative to accompany her. I took Ningan to look for someone. Ningan. Who can come and save her? Fan Kinjao took advantage of Ningan's struggle with the vendors and walked over to the nearby people who were sitting on the edge of the alley. He squatted down and gently pressed his wrists, his brows getting tighter and tighter. By the time Ningan came back covered in sweat, Fan Kinjao had already checked the pulses of many people. "Miss, are these people really having their souls taken away by evil spirits?" Fan Kinjao curled his lips and wanted to sneer, but found that he couldn't laugh at all. They were all stimulated to varying degrees, so they all went crazy. Those with superb medical skills can detoxify and cure diseases, but they cannot cure diseases that distort the will in the heart. This disease can be said to be a terminal illness. Ningan exclaimed, "So, they are hopeless." Fan Kinjao closed his eyes in silence, feeling so powerless for the first time. Ningan looked at the people scattered all over the alley, feeling angry and anxious, and tears fell from her eyes. Who is so cruel to do such a thing to these innocent people? Hell is empty, evil spirits are in the world. When people are cruel, how can evil spirits compare to them? In order to frame someone, they even used innocent people as bait. Such cruel methods are really outrageous. Who else can be so ruthless and vicious? Bailey wrongs. If such a person is really allowed to inherit the throne, how can Ziliang talk about the future? Miss, if all the people are like this, How can any portrait be drawn? When the matter is really made public, won't His Highness the Crown Prince die without any evidence? No matter how slow Ningan reacted at this moment, he still understood. The sun is here. Fan Kinjao slowly opened his eyes, his dark eyes filled with cold light. Since they want to frame us, they naturally hope that we will die without any evidence, but they are not the only ones who can splash dirty water. Since Bailey Wrongs is playing dirty tricks, she just has to accompany him to the end. Prescribing the right medicine is what she is best at. Fan Kinjao took Ningan back to his mansion in the western suburbs in a carriage, and had dozens of portraits drawn overnight. Then he called Lang Yat and Ning Tian in front of him and pasted these portraits in every corner of the main city. After Lanja and Ning Tian left, Fan Kinjao called Nanny Su over again, took a stack of banknotes and handed them over. Nanny will go to the Sun Mansion at dawn. I remember my mother gave her the street for porridge is at the corner not far from East Street. From now on, please take the people from East Street with you. If my mother doesn't have enough money, just send someone to me to get it at any time. Since Bailey Wrongs took advantage of these people, she had to secretly send people to watch their every move. Now she could not help these people in a big way, so she could only temporarily solve their food and clothing problems. After everything was taken care of, Fan Kinjao sat by the window and waited for dawn. As the rising sun illuminated the main city completely exploded. All the streets are plastered with signs signing anonymous reports of missing people, and the faces exposed to the sun cannot be said to be completely similar to the third prince, they can only be said to be exactly the same. I really didn't expect that the third prince would be such a person. No wonder this matter has been handed over to the Military and Horse Division for investigation. The Military and Horse Division has not even caught a single person so far. I think it is simply a disguised cover-up by the Military and Horse Division. Perhaps the third prince ordered the Military and Horse Division to do those things that caused trouble in the first place. For a time, rumors flew into the sky, and the people were completely in chaos. It was the minister of Dali Temple who was about to enter the palace with the portrait in his hand. He was immediately stunned. He expected that the crown princess would not give up easily, but he did not expect that the crown princess would make a big move. What is this going to do? It was clear that the dog bit her, and she was going to bite the dog back. In this way, even if the minister of Dali Temple also handed over the prince's portrait to the emperor, it would not be enough to prove the innocence of the third prince. On the contrary, Bailey Fengming was not in the main city at this time, but Bailey Wrongs, but he was still alive in the main city. In order to calm the anger of the people, Emperor Yongchang could only detain Bailey Wrongs in Dali Temple for questioning. The emperor gave the order, and the court naturally did not dare to neglect it. The minister of Dali Temple personally came to the door to block the people. Fan Swining was almost scared to death in the third prince's residence, but there was no reason for her to step forward in front of the court. No matter how worried she was, she could only hide in her small courtyard. Just like that, the third prince, who didn't even have time to wash up, got on the carriage of the minister of Dali Temple with everyone's eyes on him. When Concubine Yu learned about this, Bailey Wrongs was already on the way to Dali Temple. When she learned that her son was being taken to Dali Temple, Concubine Yu's eyes were filled with darkness, as if she had been struck by lightning. What are you doing here? Why don't you hurry up and find a way to save your brother? Concubine Yu slumped on the chair and looked at Yunyu and yelled angrily. Yunyu didn't expect that things would turn out like this. Facing the furious mother-in-law, she could only say truthfully, the people who were sent back this time are all crazy, and there is no way to prove the innocence of the third emperor's brother. I originally thought that finding someone to draw a portrait of the prince would definitely discredit the prince in the hearts of the people. Even if the prince had all kinds of abilities, he would still have trouble speaking in the face of unproven matters. How could I have thought of? In the end, they had nowhere to complain. After Concubine Yu heard this, she wanted to slap her. You reassured me that you had a way to dislodge the prince, but this is your way? The prince's portrait has indeed been presented to the emperor, but the people did not see the portrait of the prince, but the portrait of Zer. Yunyu was so scolded that she couldn't even lift her head. Originally, this matter was always carried out in secret, and the people found were all the staff around the third emperor's brother. I didn't expect that things would turn out like this. Urchin thought that someone must have leaked the news in advance, giving people the opportunity to bite the third emperor's brother back. What's the use of talking about this now, concubine? You didn't know what happened this time and how Yunyu and Bailey Wrongs planned it. But now that things have become like this, if she can't quickly prove her son's innocence, the people will. How should we view this matter? The longer the time goes on, the more people's hearts and minds will be lost. When the people's support is lost, what else can we fight for? Yunyu thought for a while and said, "My son, I will go and beg the queen now." No matter how incompatible Bailey Wrongs and Bailey Fengming were in private, on the surface, since the queen was the mother of a country, she could not have any partiality. Yunyu came to Fenji Palace and knelt down in front of the queen. She cried so hard that her heart was broken, and she looked really pitiful. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 839. Chapter 839. The Best Punishment. Empress Zhen 11 had just learned about this matter. Although she didn't inquire carefully, since the emperor had a portrait of her son, she knew whose handiwork it was without having to guess. It was obvious that the child Xiao Qinjiao had known about the rumor in advance. Only then gave a timely counterattack. Now looking at Yunyu, who was kneeling in front of her and crying bitterly, Queen Zhen 11's heart felt cold. When they were fighting, she wanted to put her son to death. When she couldn't fight, she thought of pretending to be pitiful, which was quite a beautiful idea. But just think about it. Yunyu, you have also seen that this matter not only involves the third prince, but also the prince is involved. As the prince's mother, I naturally have to avoid suspicion. Queen Zhen 11's words were very clear. She is not qualified to say a kind word to her own son, so those who are not related by blood should just step aside. Yunyu knelt on the ground and had no intention of getting up. Instead, she cried and said, "The queen doesn't know something. My father is so angry that he fell ill because of this matter." The queen is the father's anger. At this time, the queen cannot, for the sake of other people, even if it's just to make my father feel at ease, I still have to help persuade him. What this means is that if Queen Zhengzi doesn't come forward, it means she doesn't care about the emperor's well-being. Queen Zhen 11 sighed, "Yunyu, you also know that Emperor Jiaozu has already set the rules. Women in the harem are not allowed to interfere with matters in the court. Although I am just like you, I am also worried about the emperor. But Jiaozu's rules are not child's play, and I believe that your father does not want to break the rules set by our ancestors because of himself. You move to the emperor, and I will move to the ancestors. See who can overwhelm whom." Yunyu didn't expect that the empress could really refuse so thoroughly. She had no choice but to settle for the next best thing and said, "My son, I broke the rules set by the great ancestor. But now that the third emperor's brother was taken to Dali Temple in a hurry, I want to send some quilts over there, but since my mother said that the rules cannot be broken, I don't dare to make my own decisions, so I kindly ask my mother to accompany my son to see the third emperor's brother." Yunyu is using the queen's words to put pressure on the queen. Having said this, Queen Zhengzi could no longer refuse. "In this case, I will accompany you. My son, I bow to thank my mother." Yunyu knelt down and kowtowed. A shrewd calculation burst out from her eyes washed by tears. Everyone knows that the third prince is not the queen's biological child, and they also know that the queen and concubine Yu are equally incompatible with each other. As long as the queen shows up to visit the third prince at this time, the people will doubt whether this is the case. It has nothing to do with the third prince. After all, if it was really related, how could the queen come forward for a son who was neither a relative nor an acquaintance? Just as Yunyu thought, as soon as the news of the queen's visit to Dali Temple was released, all the people gathered on the street opposite Dali Temple. But what Yunyu didn't expect was that the empress did indeed enter the Dali Temple, and it was indeed Yunyu's wish to see Bailey Rongs, who was thrown into the prison. But just when Yunyu and the empress walked out of the Dali Temple at that moment, the queen suddenly stopped. Seeing this, the minister of Dali Temple quickly bowed and asked, "I wonder if the queen has anything else to explain." Queen Zhen 11 lowered her eyes slightly, with a majestic look on her face that made people dare not look at her. This matter still needs to be rigorously investigated by Dali Temple. No matter what the truth is, the murderer who harmed the people must be brought to justice. The minister of Dali Temple's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately led the people from Dali Temple to kneel down and accept the order. "I will obey the queen's instructions, and I will do my best." The common people standing across the street were suddenly stunned. It turned out that the queen was not sure that the third prince was not the murderer. Otherwise, why would she have said such things to the minister of Dali Temple just now? However, looking at the queen's upright look, the people were in awe. Even though the queen was not sure that the third prince was the murderer, she still came to Dali Temple. What does this mean? It shows that the Queen Empress is a noble mother in the world. Yunyu was so angry that she almost spat out a mouthful of blood when she saw the Queen Empress, who not only failed to clear the third prince of suspicion, but instead gained a favorable impression on her. But the queen had already agreed to accompany her to Dali Temple. Even if she knew that the queen did it on purpose, what could Yunyu say? Can't say anything. Yunyu, who had no choice but to return to Yu Palace, after telling concubine Yu about the matter, was naturally scolded by concubine Yu again. However, concubine Yu was scolding, but after she calmed down, she understood that now she was just scolding people. It can't solve any problems. This time the emperor only ordered a strict investigation of the three princes, but did not recall the prince altogether. This may not mean that he did not mean to warn them. Even if they have caught the emperor's mind now, they must not consume the emperor's patience in this way. Leave this matter to this palace, you don't need to interfere anymore. Concubine Yu said so, but she also knew in her heart that the people's anger had reached its peak. No matter what she did, it would only make the people even worse. Doubt and hate Bailey Rongs. So this matter cannot be rushed. In this way, Bailey Rongs settled in Dali Temple. With things like this, even if the emperor wanted to be partial, he couldn't. In addition, Dali Temple has always handled cases rigorously, so no matter whether concubine Yu could forge evidence to prove Bailey Rongs' innocence, Bailey Rongs for a while, there was no chance of leaving Dali Temple. It seemed that Bailey Rongs deserved his punishment this time, but every time Fan Kinjao entered the palace to visit the fifth prince, he felt that he was too kind to Bailey Rongs, but Bailey Rongs had always been arrogant. Now this situation can be regarded as the best torture for him. The fifth prince is still unconscious in Fenji Palace. Although the poison in his body is being excreted little by little, it does not happen overnight. That day, Fan Kinjao returned to the western suburbs mansion from the palace. As soon as he got off the carriage, he saw Fan Zhao coming up to him. "Miss, could you please lend me a moment to speak?" Fan Kinjao knew that Fan Zhao usually kept vigil at night. If there was no big event, he would never wait for him here. He nodded and took Fan Zhao into the second door. As soon as he entered the second gate, Fan Zhao said, "It's a coincidence. Just now I helped the master go to the shop near the city gate to purchase, and I heard someone announcing the name of the Hua family at the city gate." Fan Kinjao raised his eyebrows. "Have you seen his appearance clearly?" Fan Zhao shook his head. "It was far away and I couldn't see clearly, and the person was still sitting in a carriage, but the voice should be that of a woman." Fan Zhao is talking about women, not women. it is enough to see that the person is not too young. And since she is older and still a woman, plus the name of the florist is reported in front of the city gate. Except for the cousin-in-law whom he had never met before, Fan Kinjao really couldn't think of anyone else. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 840. Chapter 840 makes you jealous. Does anyone else know about this? Fan Kinjao looked at Fan Zhao and asked. I was the only one who went shopping this time, and the others didn't know about it. But before I came back, I heard that the woman in the carriage was asking the boy next to me to come to Hua's house to report the news. I saw that the boy was coming on foot. If considering the distance from the city gate to the western suburbs mansion, it still takes about half an hour. Are you really going to ask the Hua family to greet you at the city gate? Fan Kinjao had no time to indulge in outsiders' tempers. He counted the time in his mind and ordered Fan Zhao, let the concierge prepare a few more carriages. The sooner the better. After giving Fan Zhao instructions, Fan Kinjao walked straight towards the main courtyard. Before the hour passed, the daughters-in-law from each courtyard gathered in the main courtyard to pay their respects to the old lady. It was so lively that Fan Kinjao simply said directly that he wanted to take the elders in the mansion out for a walk, the daughters-in-law from each house, but in the house, I have to hold back my hair, and when I heard this, my eyes lit up with excitement. Originally, Tao Yuxian didn't like to mess around, but seeing the juniors gearing up one by one, it was hard to get rid of everyone's nature. He also thought that the master had told him in advance that he would go directly to the Heshuo County Prince's mansion after the next court. When he came back for lunch, he nodded and agreed to Fan Kinjao's proposal. Soon, a group of people got on the carriage in front of the mansion. As Fan Kinjao stepped onto the carriage, he took out a purse and threw it to Fan Zhao. The servants in the mansion have worked hard during this period. Please give this money to them and tell them to have a good rest today. When Fan Zhao heard this, he figured it out. Not only did he take away the masters in the mansion, but what was more cruel was that he even gave the servants below a holiday. By then, the people waiting for his cousin and grandma would arrive. There was probably no one to open the door. To put it bluntly, Miss is not leaving any way for my cousin and grandma to survive. Fan Kinjao was leaning on the soft couch of the carriage with her eyes closed. They were all relatives. If they were really good friends, she would naturally treat him with respect. But if he didn't know what was good and what was bad, she wouldn't have the time to do anything about it. Didn't her cousin always like to go her own way? That would make her feel like waiting for others all the time. In the blink of an eye, almost half a year has passed since the incident of the 15 thieves. Although the Bingma division has not been able to arrest the people and the people are still panic-stricken, the days are still going on. Although the main city is still empty. It had returned to its former lively and noisy appearance, but it was midday and the main street was still lively. On the moat, boats pass by from time to time, and just looking at them makes people feel relaxed. Fan Kinjao simply rented 2 boats and took the elders of the family on a boat trip. But the daughter-in-law of each house had never taken a boat. Ever since they got married, they had very few opportunities to go out. Now they set foot on the river. Everyone in the swaying boat turned pale with fright. The second daughter-in-law, Chun Yu, has always been a person who speaks without thinking. She shouted at the top of her voice, "Can this boat sink? Tao Yuxian, can't you say something auspicious?" The other daughters-in-law were already extremely nervous. After hearing what the second daughter-in-law Chun Yu said, they were even more frightened and panicked. They all hugged the hull of the boat beside them and refused to let go. The people on the shore saw the bear lying like this, and they all looked at it curiously. The boatman is also helpless. He is just a rower. Can you not make him look like a kidnapper? Fortunately, the boat soon started rowing steadily on the lake, and the daughters-in-law of each house gradually adapted to the feeling of sitting on the boat. Coupled with the breeze blowing, eating cakes, and occasionally chatting, they all feel that they have reached the peak of their lives. Tao Yuxian is really good at stroking her forehead. Each of them is just good at this. It seems that they should take them out to see the world more in the future. However, when the people on the shore looked at this scene, they were really envious and felt comfortable. Ever since the incident happened in the main city, everyone has been living in panic. Although no one has said anything for a long time, who is not worried? Now seeing the crown princess and her family cruising on the river in a boat, chatting and laughing, the common people felt that even their moods had relaxed a lot. Then when they thought of the third prince who was still under investigation in Dali Temple, the common people felt it's really disgusting from the bottom of my heart. Look at the princess, she knows how to spend time with her family when she has nothing to do, but their third prince, when he has nothing to do, he only knows how to make trouble with small tricks. In such a comparison, it is really clear what is superior and what is inferior. Tell me, is the 15th incident really related to the third prince? I asked you, are you stupid? If it really doesn't matter, how could the third prince be captured? If this matter is really done by the third prince, it would be too cruel. Not only will it harm others, but also yourself. How will the people in the third prince's mansion see each other in the future? Fan Swinning was standing on the shore at this time. Meeting Fan Kinjao was enough to make her nauseous, and looking at Fan Kinjao's carefree appearance made her nauseous even more. As a result, she still couldn't breathe out the bad breath. Well, the rumors from the people around her were coming towards her again. It was Fan Kinjao who was sitting on the boat who actually saw Fan Swinning. Similarly, she also knew that Fan Swinning had always been jealous, otherwise she would not have taken Bailey Wrong's position because of her. Doting on her, he also brought people to torture her all day long. Just like this, the more Fan Swinning looks here, the more Fan Kinjao pretends to enjoy the beautiful scenery. Doesn't Fan Swinning like to be jealous? Then go ahead and be jealous. Fan Shui condensed the handkerchief in her hand angrily, turned away from the crowd and got into the carriage. The maid stood beside the carriage and quickly consoled her, "Aunt Fan, why should you vent your anger on those ignorant people? Our third prince was wronged. I believe that the emperor will soon restore his innocence." Fan Swinning, however, couldn't hear a word he said. He took a few deep breaths before ordering, "Go to Dali Temple." Fan Swinning naturally felt uncomfortable seeing Fan Kinjao getting his wish, so she thought of going to Dali Temple to inform Bailey Wrongs about the matter, making Bailey Wrongs hate Fan Kinjao even more. But who would have thought that Bailey Wrongs was suffocated and angry at Dali Temple, and now after listening to Fan Swinning's words and knowing that Fan Kinjao was living a free and easy life outside, would the same prince be equally happy? The more he thought about it, the more angry he became. Bailey Wrongs was so angry that he fainted. Seeing this, the minister of Dali Temple did not dare to hide anything, so he immediately sent someone to report the matter to the palace. Emperor Yongchang was already in a bad mood because of Bailey Wrong's investigation. Now that he heard about it, he was so angry that he smashed the teacup in his hand. He immediately called concubine Yu to him and asked her whether how to discipline the people below the third prince. Concubine Yu was scolded by the emperor with a confused look on her face. When she walked out of the imperial study, her face was so dark that she couldn't even find the sunlight. "Auntie Ying. The old slave is here. Send the order and have Fan Swinning's hooves locked inside the palace." Yes. End of this chapter.